Well, thank you for meeting with me today, Howard. I would love to get started with a little bit about your background and what inspired you in this field.
Well, thank you, Korrina. I'm a PhD psychologist, and I've been working with parents and children in various capacities for the past 42, 43 years, both as a private practitioner working directly, managing and supervising group practices. And I actually started the first independent insurance benefit management company in the United States for autism benefits for children back in 2010. So I've been on all sides of the fence, both organizing networks, providing care directly, and building networks and actually paying for their services. So I'm a broad familiarity with parent and children issues.
That's very interesting to know that you have so much experience in so many different fields, or so many facets of this field, but that you have decided to come and put all of that experience into this bucket of GAI. What led to that motivation and that inspiration?
Sure. I mean, it started as an altruistic thought process that here in North America, we have at least 90% of the autism resources in the world. And the incidence of autism is the same for everybody. It's about 2% of the population. But it's more than that because younger is better. 50 years of research have shown that children that get autism services early on do much, much better. In fact, there's repeated research that shows kids that began treatment under the age of 6 were indistinguishable from any other child by second grade. So earlier is better, and to make services available to a broader base of people in the world.
So being able to get that broader reach quicker to families early on in their childhood, rather than it going till they're too old.
Right, and I believe with the internet out there that parents, even those that are in geographically remote areas or whatever, have an awareness. Parents know something's wrong with my child, and they have an awareness and can kind of pin it down. Family doctors all over the world are well aware of it, and there's something that we can offer that can do some constructive good.
Got it. That's awesome. That sounds incredible. I think the goal behind this is something we're lacking in this industry, and I think that's great that you want to reach out to the rest of the world as well. I think that's a huge piece of it. What are some key moments or experiences that you had that led you to end up here with GAI?
In addition to everything I mentioned, I was also the chief clinical officer for Deborah, which serviced some of the first autism cases ever back in the 1940s. So I've had the opportunity to do a lot of work and to get on the ground floor of the quality and outcomes world. So basically, it's not only what you do and having your heart in the right place, but you need to have some outcomes, some measurement. In autism, we can look specifically at needs and changes in skills and behaviors.
How does GAI differ from what you've seen that's in the field already? What's the other options that are out there currently for families, both in the United States or internationally? How does GAI differ from the other options that they have available?
Right. So the method of care is ABA therapy, applied behavior analysis, and people all over the world have been trained in ABA and do that. But ABA can be a very mechanical process, which you could have a robot who's observing and making notes on a child and the behavior and what seems okay, what seems amiss. But there often is not any training and background that those of us trained as clinicians get in terms of active listening, empathizing accurately with parents so they can tell that we're on the same page, helping them learn to communicate, actively listen with their child to improve the communication, which is an important step one. because without that coming into existence, nothing else may happen.
So essentially, GAI is teaching the parents to also be the practitioner and be involved in those.
Exactly.
Can you give us an example of one of those? You know, how would you teach a parent? How does this program teach a parent to actively listen to their child?
Well, I begin in working with them, and our behavior specialists working with them would demonstrate active listening.
Okay.
So in an initial session and beyond, we meet with the parents once or twice to get a sense of where they're coming from and what the child's needs may be. I'm going to listen attentively. I'm going to lean slightly forward in my chair, nod my head periodically, smile periodically, and every now and then creatively and factually summarize what they've said to me so they get the idea that I'm listening and I've heard them. Many people don't feel that they're heard. So by demonstrating that, in subsequent sessions, it would transition to teaching the parents, coaching them to communicate with their child in a similar manner.
So you're showing them an example, teaching them, and then kind of passing that torch to the parents to take over that.
Professional in the room has to be a living example of that skill.
Okay. And so all of this happens in the home setting, or is it out in the world? You know, how does that?
It doesn't always, but it ideally should, because children, particularly children under the age of 12, spend the most hours of their week and their day in the home.
Okay.
Also, the parent-child relationship, caregiver-child relationship is also critical in terms of the flow of activity and feelings and goodwill under the same roof.
Got it.
So it's important, and as you go on with the autism education and training, it's to how to selectively deliver messages, learning how to give approval for certain things, to ignore and withhold approval for others, to make tangible privileges or treats available very selectively. But it begins with the ability to communicate more faithfully, accurately, empathically with the child.
Was that the driving factor of why you decided to make GAI an online program, or were there other factors that were involved with deciding for it to be an online program?
I think it is ideal because it gets into the home. It bypasses the inconvenience for parents who have multiple children and appointments. It deals with stigma that exists in some cases, people walking in to a professional psychology type office for services. So it does a lot of good. But GAI was also inspired on a trip I took last year. I live on the East Coast, I think, as you know, but visiting a number of friends out in Southern California, and visiting Mike and Vicky in particular. I became fully familiar with Optimus Education, which has succeeded very brilliantly in certifying autism behavior specialists all over the world. And in many parts of the world where I wanted to focus, Southeast Asia and the Middle East, they had thousands of people that are trained and certified that have gone through their doors. So I didn't have to worry about starting from scratch in terms of recruiting competent providers. So putting the various pieces together, it seemed like there was an opportunity to go forward with GAI.
How would you rationalize with a family that paying this out-of-pocket fee for this program is an investment into their child? How do you explain that to a family that is maybe struggling financially, or this isn't being covered by insurance? Why is this still such an important aspect of this therapy for their child?
In a number of ways, your child is only young once, and things don't get better over time. Life becomes more complicated. So the earlier something constructive can be offered to the child and the family, the better. We can conform with fees charged by local payers in their region, but by approaching the optimal choice for us is to approach it with a parent training program first. If we can get the parents and the child working together and working with the parents to develop the treatment plan and what the outcomes are going to look like on all sides, we can get the job done in many cases quicker than it might take, walking the door of a clinic somewhere else.
So each family will have a personalized program at GAI, depending on their needs, depending on the, will they follow are there typical program components? Like, will every family for the most part hit the same components?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We talked about the active listening.
Okay.
And we also in there give them a basic primer on autism. What is it? What are the hallmark signs and so on. Talk about essential components like reinforcement. What does that really mean? It's the way you may look at your child or not look at your child, or the tone of your voice in terms of what's reinforcing and what is not. So we teach the components and illustrate those components. We develop a treatment plan, not only the clinical person's observations of the child. So we meet with the parents a couple of times and zero in with that. We meet with the child a couple of times and do some observations and kind of put together what's going to be the primary focus here.
Is the parent involved in helping decide what those milestones and those goals will be?
Absolutely. The parent is essential in determining the goals and or agreeing with the goals that the behavior specialist has identified. And secondly, looking at outcome. What do you want? What are you hoping for as an outcome for your child longer term?
Okay. What would you say is the typical parent involvement in this program? Are they involved with every step along the way? Is it hands-on? Or are they just more of a are they just more watching and learning?
The parents go through their own personal heaven and hell with how the child's doing or not doing, and fears can run away, which is, is my child going to jail, to a hunt, whatever, as well as observing all manner of what goes on for good as well. So after we get some degree of the parent training going, we ask the parents to come in, once or twice a month.
You're looking at the unique needs of the individual, building a program off of that, following some key programs that are typical to help, showing the parent how to use those programs. It's all in the home. The home setting sounds very important. Home and school are the only two key environments with the kids. And some of the kids are preschool or haven't started school yet, or in elementary school or whatnot, but the home is the place to be. We can build the strongest base. Well, I would love to is there anything else you think is super important that you'd like to touch on with GAI? Anything we didn't get to discuss today?
I think we've covered a lot of grounds, and hope that the human and sincere purpose that we develop GAI to serve has become more explicit in our discussion. And we look forward to being of service to parents and children across the globe.
I think your mission is beautiful. I think it's something that has a authenticity and is very genuine. And I can't wait to see the lives that this program is able to impact with this work. And I think a lot of families will really benefit. So I think that's great.
Thank you so much, Korrina.
Of course, you're very welcome. Thank you for meeting with me today. Thank you for sharing these parts of GAI that is going to be great to share with the rest of the world.
Very good.